Breaking right now, the British royal family mired in one of its biggest crises in history.
In a shocking and unexpected move, Princess Anne has reportedly stopped Queen Camilla from taking part in Prince William's coronation planning meetings.
Well, I'm not sure what I'm able to bring. It's what all these very brave ladies tell me.
Behind palace doors, tensions have reached a breaking point, and the royal family is now facing a serious internal divide, one that could disrupt the carefully protected order of the monarchy. So what finally pushed Anne to take such a firm stand? Could there be a rift between the two of them? Join us as we uncover Princess Anne's unexpected move, preventing Camilla from Prince William's coronation planning. Royal family power struggle. For all its centuries of tradition, strict rules, and carefully rehearsed rituals, the royal family was never truly ready for this moment. What should have been a smooth and united shift of power, with Prince William stepping forward backed firmly by the entire institution, slowly turned into something far more dangerous. A quiet internal war marked by divided loyalties, silent resistance, and calculated moves made behind closed doors. Then came the shock no one saw coming. Princess Anne, long known as the most disciplined and duty-bound member of the family, made a decision that stunned even seasoned palace insiders. Instead of offering her support, she used her authority to stop something cold. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't make a public statement. She simply blocked the process and did it with surgical precision. Queen Consort Camilla was quietly cut out. She was completely excluded from the earliest planning discussions surrounding the next crown. And this wasn't accidental or subtle. Palace aides later confirmed that for weeks, invitations, confidential briefings, and high-level strategy meetings had been circulating. Yet Camilla's name appeared on none of them. Not once. What made the situation even more astonishing was how cleanly it was carried out. William's closest advisors moved swiftly and without hesitation, clearly following Princess Anne's lead. Every document, every conversation, every foundational decision tied to the future coronation was shared only within a tightly sealed inner circle, one that answered directly to Anne and William alone. According to sources, Camilla didn't learn the truth through an official conversation or a formal notice. She found out by accident. Members of her own staff reportedly questioned why she had not been included on a key planning memo, one that should have crossed her desk automatically. That was the moment it became impossible to ignore. The emotional impact was immediate and severe. Those inside Clarence House say Camilla felt completely blindsided. It wasn't just shock. It was a deep sense of betrayal, not only by Princess Anne, but by the entire royal system she believed she had finally been accepted into. And yet, true to palace tradition, she said nothing publicly. No protest, no correction, no visible response. But inside those ancient palace walls, the message couldn't have been clearer. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a scheduling error. It was deliberate exclusion. The firm had drawn a new boundary, and Camilla was standing firmly on the wrong side of it. Some insiders argue that Princess Anne was acting purely out of loyalty to William, attempting to shield him from internal conflict and long-standing tensions. Others believe the move was driven by something far more serious, a struggle over legacy, influence, and who truly holds authority when the future of the monarchy is being shaped. As word quietly spread, speculation exploded. Whatever the truth, one thing was undeniable. The atmosphere inside the palace had changed. Without a single spoken word, the Queen Consort had been told that her role was no longer essential, perhaps not even welcome. And in making that statement, Princess Anne may have set off a turning point in royal history. Was this backlash against Camilla's growing public presence and perceived overreach? Had Anne grown tired of her expanding influence behind the scenes? Let's find out. Anne and Camilla tension. Inside royal circles, Princess Anne has always been seen as the monarchy's backbone, the steady, unmovable force that keeps the whole structure upright. She is known for her iron discipline, deep respect for tradition, and a lifetime of service carried out quietly, without flair or personal drama. Anne doesn't chase cameras or charm headlines. Yet when she acts, the palace pays attention. Beneath her calm, controlled surface, however, lies a long-building tension that few outside the inner circle truly understand. That tension centers largely on Camilla. From the earliest days when Charles and Camilla re-emerged publicly as a couple, Anne never softened toward her. As years passed and Camilla rose from public controversy to queen consort, Anne's position stayed the same: cool, distant, and carefully measured. While other senior royals made visible efforts to welcome Camilla into the family, Anne limited herself to what protocol required. There were no warm gestures, no joint causes, no signs of genuine closeness. Just polite acknowledgement and nothing more. This distance was never about jealousy or personal dislike. It was about principle. Anne believes deeply in rank, duty, and the idea that status must be earned through years of service, not reshaped by public sympathy or clever image repair. To her, Camilla's rise, powered by marriage and a carefully managed public redemption, felt undeserved. One palace insider recalled a private moment after an event at Balmoral when Anne quietly remarked to a trusted confidant, "Some people wear the crown for duty. Others wear it for appearance." No names were mentioned, but the meaning was unmistakable. When Charles became king, Anne's concerns only intensified. Camilla's influence appeared to grow rapidly. She became more involved in protocol discussions, more assertive during public engagements, and increasingly confident in shaping how she was seen within the royal structure. To Anne, this wasn't confidence, it was overreach. It felt like an attempt to rewrite her role in the monarchy rather than accept its limits. The strain wasn't limited to public appearances. Behind closed doors, tensions reportedly surfaced during at least 2 major state events. Palace aides claim Anne intervened when Camilla attempted to take the lead in ceremonial matters. One particularly sharp moment occurred at a diplomatic reception, where Anne is said to have firmly interrupted Camilla mid-conversation with a foreign envoy and redirected the exchange herself. It wasn't an act of rivalry. It was, in Anne's mind, a necessary correction. Privately, Anne began speaking to Prince William. She warned him that Camilla's growing assertiveness was beginning to blur the line between symbolic support and real influence. Anne feared that if this continued unchecked, it could destabilize the delicate balance of authority the monarchy relies on to function. Her concern wasn't personal, it was structural. She believed the institution itself was at risk. Those warnings, according to royal insiders, marked a quiet turning point. Though never officially confirmed, many now believe Anne's conversations with William planted the earliest seeds of Camilla's reduced role in coronation planning. It wasn't punishment. It was protection. Anne viewed Camilla's expanding presence not as reinforcement of the throne, but as a potential challenge to it. With William preparing for a future already burdened by modern pressure and public scrutiny, Anne made a calculated choice. She acted quietly, decisively, and without explanation, shielding the future of the monarchy with silent resistance rather than open conflict. But what Anne sensed approaching, William may have already feared. According to a source close to the Prince of Wales, a private meeting between William and Camilla just weeks ago changed everything. In that confidential exchange, the future king reportedly set a firm boundary regarding roles and influence, only to be met not with understanding, but with cold defiance. So, was there an unspoken divide within the royal family? Let's take a closer look. Prince William and Camilla clash. The tension between Prince William and Camilla had been quietly building for a long time. It wasn't sudden, and it wasn't loud. It lived in pauses, in polite smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes, in moments where something felt off, but was never openly discussed. But all of that finally came to a head during a private meeting at Clarence's house, one meant to clear the air, but which instead exposed how deep the divide had grown. In public, William had always played his role perfectly: calm, respectful, measured. But behind closed doors, the pressure had been mounting. He had been watching closely as Camilla stepped more boldly into ceremonial roles, spoke with increasing authority, and positioned herself in moments that William believed were meant to belong to the future of the monarchy, not its past. What began as personal unease had evolved into something far more serious. To William, this was no longer about feelings. It was about structure, order, and the future crown itself. So when he requested the meeting, he did so not as a stepson, and not even as family, but as the Prince of Wales, preparing for the day he would become king. His intention was simple. He wanted a conversation, a calm discussion about boundaries, a respectful request for space. Instead, it became a test of wills. According to those familiar with the meeting, William spoke directly but courteously. He explained that with coronation planning now underway, he needed room to define his reign, room to lead, to shape its meaning, and to do so without feeling overshadowed. He made it clear that Camilla's presence, once understandable and even necessary, was now beginning to feel intrusive. He asked that she step back from key planning meetings, especially those involving symbolic and ceremonial decisions that would define his future as king. There were no accusations, no raised voice, no attempt to embarrass her. It was a request, delivered with restraint. Camilla, however, did not receive it that way. She reportedly smiled, but the smile carried an edge. With a tone that blended amusement and dismissal, she replied, "It's all symbolic tradition, darling, nothing more." To William, it wasn't just a casual remark. It was a refusal to recognize the weight he was carrying. A denial that the moment had shifted, and that it no longer belonged to her. That was when something in him snapped. Breaking from his usual restraint, William responded sharply, delivering a sentence that insiders say still echoes through palace corridors. "This is not your crown to shape." The words fell hard and final. There was no shouting afterward, no dramatic exchange, just silence, a heavy pause. Then William stood up and left. He didn't wait for her response. His decision had already been made. The very next day, he met privately with Princess Anne. The timing was deliberate. The conversation with Camilla had clarified everything. This was no longer about personal discomfort. It was about authority, public perception, and the long-term legacy of the monarchy. Anne agreed without hesitation. Together, they decided that Camilla would be excluded from all further coronation planning. But they did not tell her right away. The move was calculated, quiet, surgical. Meeting agendas were subtly changed, guest lists adjusted, correspondence rerouted. Planning sessions continued, without Camilla's name attached. The palace, governed by unspoken rules and silent signals, adapted quickly and efficiently. It wasn't a rebellion, it was realignment. William had drawn the line. Anne had reinforced it. Camilla, however, was not prepared to be pushed aside. When she finally discovered what had happened, her reaction was explosive. Sources say she erupted in anger, shouting, "I am queen inside Clarence's house!" But beneath the fury wasn't just wounded pride, it was fear. Fear of losing influence, fear of being erased. The truth hadn't come through official channels. It surfaced accidentally. A small update on a staff calendar, a brief note about a coronation planning meeting at Kensington Palace. Camilla's name was missing. At first, Her team assumed it was a mistake, a clerical error, but as calls went unanswered and messages were met with silence, reality set in. She hadn't been forgotten. She had been excluded. Panic rippled through her inner circle. Advisors urged calm, restraint, discretion. But Camilla's anger spilled beyond diplomacy. This wasn't about one meeting. It was about what the omission represented. Her voice no longer carried weight where it mattered most. Fueled by betrayal, she reportedly stormed into a private sitting room where King Charles was reviewing state papers. The doors closed behind her. For several long minutes, raised voices echoed through Clarence House, though nothing would ever be officially acknowledged. "They cannot treat me like a guest," she is said to have cried. Charles, caught between his role as husband and his duty as king, offered no clear defense. He didn't argue, but he didn't step in either. His silence spoke louder than words. In that moment, Camilla understood something she hadn't expected. His loyalty lay with his son. For years, Camilla had carefully climbed her way into the heart of the monarchy, reshaping her image with patience, charm, and strategy. But now the same institution that once protected her had shifted its stance, and she was standing outside the circle. Still, retreat was not in her nature. Behind the scenes, she mobilized her team. The tone shifted from quiet management to open strategy. Ideas were floated. Exclusive interviews, discreet leaks, carefully timed appearances meant to remind the public of her presence and importance. The goal wasn't to expose the fracture, but to regain control within it. Yet even as she fought to reclaim her influence, the truth was impossible to ignore. William's coronation plans were moving forward without her. Alliances were solidifying. Decisions were being made. The narrative, once crafted to include her, was being rewritten. The blow wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. In royal power struggles, visibility is everything. And for the first time since becoming queen beside Charles, Camilla was watching herself fade from view. Her fight for relevance soon hit another wall. Because while Camilla struggled to hold her ground, someone else had quietly taken her place. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepped forward without drama or resistance. By William's side, she offered stability, clarity, and a vision deeply rooted in public trust. Where Camilla fought to remain seen, Catherine embodied the future. Calm, assured, and undeniably aligned with the crown that was yet to come. And in that quiet shift, the balance of power was sealed. Could Catherine be yielding some silent powers in the monarchy? Let's take a closer look. Catherine's astonishing influence. As whispers about Camilla being shut out grew louder behind palace doors, another presence was quietly taking control. Without speeches, demands, or drama. Catherine didn't ask for space. She didn't need to. She stepped into it naturally, carrying a calm authority that spoke for her. While others pushed for influence, Catherine let hers build slowly, earned through poise, thoughtfulness, and absolute focus. Senior palace staff later said her role in William's early coronation meetings wasn't symbolic or for show. It was essential. From the very beginning, Catherine helped shape the mood and meaning of the ceremony itself. She wasn't interested in repeating tradition just because it had always been done that way. She wanted the coronation to feel alive, to connect, to resonate, to matter to a new generation watching closely. It was Catherine who suggested that young people should have a visible role in the procession, giving the future a literal place in the moment. It was Catherine who proposed honoring Queen Elizabeth II in a way that respected history while gently pointing forward, blending legacy with purpose. And it was Catherine's manner, quiet, steady, impossible to shake, that won over every advisor in the room. Where Camilla's actions had become more noticeable and more openly questioned, Catherine moved with such ease that she met no resistance at all. Her influence wasn't announced. It didn't need to be. You could feel it. Palace aides described her as thoughtful, intentional, and perfectly aligned with William. The two didn't operate through rank or command. They worked as equals. One insider put it simply: where William brought strength, Catherine brought balance. Together, they were shaping the coronation in ways few inside the palace had expected. There were no headlines marking Catherine's rise. No grand reveal. Just a steady presence that grew impossible to ignore. The palace never formally declared her importance because it didn't have to. The country already sensed it. After years of scandals, tension, and public fatigue, people found comfort in Catherine's quiet ascent. She felt grounding, polished yet relatable, dutiful without arrogance, elegant without pushing herself forward. Polling numbers quietly backed up what advisors had been feeling all along. The public wasn't responding to titles or bloodlines. They were responding to something rarer: authenticity. And in that authenticity, Catherine was becoming what Camilla never fully managed to be: a symbol of trust. What made it even more striking was that Catherine never tried to replace anyone. She didn't compete with Camilla. She simply embodied what the monarchy was moving toward, and, in some ways, what it once was. Behind palace gates, as power shifted in subtle but unmistakable ways, one truth became clear to everyone watching closely. The future queen wasn't waiting for a crown. She was already behaving like one. But just as William and Catherine's vision began to settle into place, a hidden meeting took place, one that threatened to undo everything the palace had tried to quietly manage. In a secluded corner of Windsor, King Charles called Princess Anne in for a private conversation. Sources later described it as tense, restrained, and deeply personal. What was said there, and what Anne refused to do, could alter the course of the royal family itself. The meeting began politely, but the weight beneath it was heavy. Charles, under growing pressure from Camilla, was trying to regain control. He wanted Anne to reverse her decision, to undo the quiet but decisive move that had kept Camilla out of William's coronation planning. To Camilla, it was a humiliation she could not forgive. To Charles, it felt like a crack in the fragile unity he had spent years trying to rebuild. But Anne had not come to Windsor to retreat. She came as she always had, not to protect feelings, but to protect the crown. Charles argued not as a king, but as a husband. He spoke of loyalty, of redemption, of a woman who had endured judgment and believed she had finally earned her place. "She is my wife," he reportedly said, his voice heavy with emotion. It wasn't just a declaration, it was a plea. Anne never raised her voice. She didn't have to. Her reply was firm, calm, and final. "He is our future." But how does it affect Camilla? Will it be the end of Camilla's reign? Let's find out. The quiet exile of Queen Camilla. King Charles sat quietly, the weight of time pressing down on him. Age had made him more aware of what lay ahead, and in that moment, the future felt narrow and unforgiving. He hadn't just failed to change Anne's mind, he had been forced to confront a far harsher reality. His influence was no longer what it once was. The reach of his authority, once unquestioned, now had limits he could no longer ignore. Camilla had once been his refuge. She had been the steady presence he leaned on through years of public scrutiny and private struggle. But now, instead of uniting the family, she had become the very fault line, running through it. The room fell into an uneasy silence, thick and uncomfortable, as the conversation stalled and then died altogether. By then, Charles must have known the outcome. This was not a battle he could win. Anne did not stand there as a concerned sister or a comforting ally. She stood firm, like a guard at the gate, steady, resolute, and unmoved. There was no hesitation in her posture, no apology in her eyes. When the moment passed, she simply stood up, gave a brief nod, and walked away. No closing remarks, no effort to soften the blow, no attempt at reconciliation. That was it. There would be no joint appearance, no carefully staged smiles, no public display of unity to reassure the world. The meeting ended, and with it, the illusion that harmony still existed behind palace walls. What followed was not peace, but a quiet storm, one that wouldn't explode across headlines, but would unfold slowly through calculated moves and silent resistance within the institution itself. Anne had drawn her line, William had made his decision, and Charles, despite wearing the crown, was beginning to understand a painful truth about power in the monarchy. It is not something you own forever. It is borrowed through tradition, protected by family loyalty, and reshaped by those willing to defend what they believe the crown should stand for, no matter the personal cost. As tensions reached their breaking point, palace aides moved quickly. A statement was drafted with extreme care. Every word was chosen, every phrase polished. Yet what the statement left unsaid spoke louder than anything it included. When the palace finally spoke, it effectively said nothing at all. The announcement was calm, brief, and deliberately vague. It downplayed any internal conflict and presented a picture of smooth coordination. Released quietly through official royal channels, it referred to ongoing cooperation between senior royals in support of the Prince of Wales. No names were mentioned, no details were offered, and most striking of all, Queen Camilla was not referenced in any way. That omission became the story. Royal commentators and media analysts immediately zeroed in on the wording. The repeated emphasis on support for the Prince of Wales dominated the headlines. In royal language, silence can be as powerful as a declaration. And Camilla's absence was impossible to ignore. To those watching closely, it felt like confirmation. The Queen Consort had been pushed aside, and the institution had no intention of explaining why. Inside the palace, calm was only a performance. The real atmosphere was tense and frantic. Internal memos circulated with urgent instructions. Stay on message, avoid speculation, do not engage with the press. Staff were told to deny knowledge of any planning meetings and, most tellingly, to avoid using Camilla's name in any coronation-related discussion. It was a full-scale containment effort, designed to control the narrative, limit damage, and preserve the appearance of unity. But appearances only hold when cracks remain hidden. This time, they hadn't. Camilla's team, caught off guard once again, reportedly felt deeply betrayed. She hadn't just been excluded from the process, she was being erased from it. One insider close to her circle described an atmosphere, thick with quiet anger, and whispered talk of retaliation. Some urged her to speak out and defend herself. Others advised patience, silence, and dignity, hoping time would restore her public role. But for Camilla, the harm had already been done. She hadn't merely been sidelined, she had been made invisible. And in a monarchy where perception is power, invisibility is not just an insult, it is exile. Had King Charles personally approved every line? Or was this the quiet sign of Prince William pushing his authority more firmly from the shadows? Or had Princess Anne's influence grown so strong that even the crown's language now carried her unmistakable strength and determination? Let's find out. Monarchy's hidden truth. Behind every carefully chosen word and every detail left out, the truth was loud and impossible to ignore. The monarchy was fighting itself, and the world could see the cracks forming behind its perfect image. No matter how hard the palace tried to cover them up, someone inside let the truth slip, and it centered on a letter that was never meant to be seen. In a stunning turn of events, a private letter written by Princess Anne surfaced. It had been meant for only one person, her brother. It was never intended for the public, but what it revealed cut straight to the heart of what the royal family claims to stand for. Weeks before Camilla was quietly pushed aside from William's coronation planning, Anne had sat down and written to Charles. This alone was unusual. Even more striking was the emotion behind it. Though written in her usual formal and disciplined style, the letter exposed something deeply personal and unsettling. The monarchy, in Anne's eyes, was slowly losing its way. She wrote about the heavy burden of tradition, not just on those who carry it now, but on the future it is meant to protect. Her words weren't fueled by jealousy or rivalry. They came from genuine worry. She warned that without limits and discipline, the monarchy could turn into what she chillingly described as a pageant of contradiction, a place where appearances mattered more than purpose. Anne never mentioned Camilla by name, but the meaning was clear. She spoke about the danger of public perception and how trust begins to fade when personal relationships start to outweigh national responsibility. Her message was firm and unapologetic. She described William as the last strong pillar of tradition, combined with vision. A powerful statement that showed not only her confidence in him, but her belief that the future of the crown now rested on his judgment. She urged Charles to step back, not as a brother speaking to a sister, but as someone sworn to protect the monarchy itself. Letting go, she argued, might be painful, but it was necessary for survival. So, what do you think about Princess Anne's action towards Camilla? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.